And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I guess we have no intro music this evening. This is Tuesday, June 24th, 2014. On the Hagmann Hagmann Report, Joe Hagmann here with my co-host and my father, Doug Hagmann. Apparently there was a problem with the switchboard, and the music didn't play. So
see, no, it's not my fault this time, is it?
Yeah, not your fault.
That's right.
Looking to see what the problem is. It just didn't play, so we'll have to look into that, but no big deal. Glad to be here. I had... Yesterday was my second year wedding anniversary, and my wife and I went out of town, short 90 minutes away, to hang out with a friend. And
hang out with a friend.
He took us out on his boat. He took us out to breakfast. Larry, he's in our chat room, been a long time listener, and just had a tremendous time. And I would ask for your prayers for Larry. He's been having issues with his defibrillator. And also prayers continuing for Randy and Sue.
Right on.
But a fantastic weekend. Back and ready to go. I heard you had a great show with Kevin Shipp last night.
It was fantastic, folks. If you didn't hear it, definitely go back and listen to it. It's accessible via our archives. And if you have the app, you can download the app and full access to the archives, easy access to the archives, the app for iPhones and Androids and what have you.
And just another side note here, if we lose power or get cut off, they're calling for up to 2 inches of rain within an hour. We're going to get hit with some thunderstorms. And if the wind blows the wrong way, the power tends to go out here. So just a heads up, we'll reconnect if it does happen. But
yeah, it's not a drone strike. But, well, you know, I don't know. Based on the news today, they were talking about the drones, the private drones, alleged private drones getting in the way of aircraft. A whole bunch of incidents that were out of plane, you know.
There's videos on YouTube you can find of not only drones but also the chemtrail planes having near midair collisions with aircraft carriers. There were 400 or 600 crashes of drones since 9/11. I think they reported on Friday.
Yeah, but what the news is saying is these are private hobbyists with either
private
drones with either remote control aircraft or drones. Some with a wingspan of 15 feet. It's curious. I find that a little bit curious. I'd like to know. I'd like to see a little bit more documentation of how they arrived at the private ownership of these, and if that.
Well, they say here in the Washington Post that the close encounters on the rise as small drones gain in popularity, and it's called near misses. And also, FAA has grounded Amazon delivery drones due to these close encounters.
Yeah, wise move, I suspect, with the Amazon delivery drones. You know, something about that just doesn't seem right, folks, does it?
Not out of the blue. Not like this.
No.
What they had plans for, we reported not too long ago, what was it, 15,000 drones in the sky within the next few years. This was FAA police use authorized drones.
There's going to be 30,000 DOD, yeah, DOD related apparently. But we know that every state, and I believe every county in at least the lower 48 is covered. Or at least has one. I heard that. I can't verify that, but I did hear that.
Well, the FAA put out, the Department of Transportation, they put out an interpretation of special rule for model aircraft. It is an action provides interest persons with the opportunity to comment on the FAA's interpretation of the special rule enacted by Congress through the FAA Modernization Reform Act of 2012. It clarifies that model aircraft must satisfy criteria in the Act to qualify as aircraft and to be exempt from future FAA rulemaking. They're talking about drones here. And they go through safety issues. They had a federal rulemaking. You know how they give the public 30 days to comment, and then they put in there. Well, they already went through all these steps, and they passed this bill, obviously. But Section 336 of the FAA Modernization Reform Act enforces the FAA's authority over all aircraft, whether they're private, public, commercial, and it looks like they're talking about referring to special aircraft as well, meaning the drones. And they get into the private drones and how they're thinking about setting up a new agency to intertwine with the not just the military and regular aircraft flight patterns and things, but how to avoid unmanned aircraft from private and government, setting up a new FAA type system for private and public airways. But there's a 17-page PDF document in that article from the Washington Times. So if you want more information on that, we'll get into that a little bit later, or you can read it. Also, the FAA's, what was it called? The 2012 Safety Modernization Act. FAA's Modernization and Reform Act of 2012.
You find these PDF files all over the place. We've got a good program for you planned tonight and tomorrow night. Of course, Steve Quayle, NV, the guerrilla economist, the Baton Death March for the U.S. dollar. That's the title of the program. You're not going to want to miss that. That's tomorrow night. Tonight, of course, Stan Dayo. And before we get into some of the more controversial issues of tonight, I think that we've got some controversial issues to discuss tonight with respect to the illegal aliens coming into this country. But before we get into that, I just want to mention this about Benghazi. In the wake of Kevin's ship's appearance, and again, folks, if you didn't hear that or if you didn't download that, please do so and give that to. Let others hear that, at least the first hour. I think he makes tremendous sense with respect to Benghazi. But here's my take, and then I'm going to toss this back over to Joe. If any conversation about Benghazi begins with the topic of security, it's a fallacy. Yeah, or using the word embassy or consulate, or talks about security, it is a fallacious argument. Don't fall for that. It has nothing to do with security, and of course, nothing to do with the anti-Islam or the innocence of Muslims video. Are those
special keywords of disinformation or non-starter stories, really?
Well, it's like a foil. I mean, yes, yeah. They, meaning the government, wants people to focus on security, and compound security. Now, that's not the security at the compound or the security at the embassy is what the emails were referencing, and this is security for the ambassador. It is a fallacious argument. It is meant to misdirect. It has nothing to do with security. So please, if the media brings this up, if a politician brings this up, if a House investigator brings this up, it is meant to distract. It is meant to misdirect.
Yeah,
redirect.
Think about all the government agencies we have, and even in the State Department, the Department of Defense, all these huge agencies that are specifically tasked with, we'll say, security at military bases. We have military bases all across the world. We have military installations all across the world, both public and classified. There are teams of people that are tasked with making sure security is okay at each of these installations. Multiple people, multiple systems, the fail-safe systems. And so we know the story of Benghazi. We know that the security was called off, and then when requests for additional security were made by personnel that were killed there on the ground.
You see, you're falling into that trap, though. You're engaging into that narrative.
I mean, my point is that the security isn't an issue because the only reason there wasn't proper security there was because of government intended what they did. They pulled the security back. And I was thinking today, in a bigger sense, about Iraq. We spent how long, tearing down Saddam Hussein's dictatorship, building up a government, putting in a police force, training the soldiers, training the police, over 30,000 Iraqi police officers, and I heard that there was less than 1,000 of these ISIL or ISIS terrorists that organized. And you have all these police officers fleeing. You have the anarchy being started that could have been if the police force and the army would have came together and did what they were trained to do, what we trained them to do for almost a decade, gave them money and weapons and supplies. Could it not have been planned this way to set up a straw man government, set up these police people and personnel, and then continue to give them money and supplies and say, well, when you see this happen, leave.
I think that's a good possibility. I can't discount that, and I don't think anyone else can. If you look at how Iraq played out, by the way, ISIL, I-S-I-L, it should be ISIS, because ISIL is, I believe, I personally believe, an attempt to take the attention, the words off of Syria, because by replacing Syria with the word Levant, I don't believe it properly characterizes what's that group. But
the reason I said both of them, and I'm going to do this from now on, is because over the weekend when I was watching the news with my wife, you heard numerous different stories about this group in Iraq come about, and in 2 different days, one network called it ISIS, the other one called it ISIL, and she said, well, are there 2 groups of terrorists? I had to explain that no, it's the same group, same name. They're just being called different names by the news media. So I'll start referring to it in both ways so people don't get confused.
The Americans, we Americans, abandon our equipment, the ammunition, the weapons, even some uniforms. We abandoned everything in Iraq. And don't forget, we had said, based on W's information back around Christmas time, that Kerry gave the green light to ISIS, saying that, hey, we're not going to intervene. And folks, be very wary of this, too. When Obama says that he's going to perhaps send in the drones over there in Syria to counter ISIS, do you believe for one moment that those drones are actually going to be targeting the ISIS organization, or would they be used perhaps to target the Syrian army?
That was another reason in my line of thinking about Iraq being a complete setup from the beginning for this to happen. I mean, what if these groups were told, all right, start gathering together, taking over a few towns here and there. We assure you we will not send airstrikes. We will not send soldiers.
Interesting observation, and I think that has merit. I think the argument has merit. If you go back to 2003, well, even go back to the first Gulf War, Desert Storm, we did not topple Saddam Hussein. And I find that very interesting. I mean, Schwarzkopf was right, he was going to go right to Baghdad and was pulled back. Why is that? Was it only because of our relations with Saddam Hussein at the time?
I don't know. Let's listen to what Dick Cheney said today.
Do you think we get through this decade without a massive attack on the homeland?
I doubt it. I think there will be another attack. And the next time, I think it's likely to be far deadlier than the last one. Just imagine what would happen if somebody could smuggle a nuclear device, put it in a shipping container, and drive it down the Beltway outside Washington, D.C.
By the way, if that were to happen, do you see the government reconstituting? Because it would have to be military rule for a period of time, at least.
Well, there was, some years ago, a program called the Continuity of Government Program. It was part of the Cold War strategy that we pursued here, and it involved having a government in waiting, if you will, ready to go in the event of a nuclear attack on the United States, so that we could always maintain the constitutional-based governmental authority. I was part of that program.
So, do you think there will be another 9/11 style attack?
This decade, or within the decade. I'm not sure exactly how he phrased that.
Attack on America? Will there be another 9/11 style attack in America in the next decade? No reserve of any doubt or reservations. He said, absolutely. I believe it was a quote. We're just likely to see something a lot more massive than we did on September 11th. Now, will this be a result of what our foreign policy and what we've created in the Middle East, or will this be what some will say is a needed another huge false flag to bring the attention of the population back to where they want it, like they had it before 9/11, to complete their push for their new world order? It would fit their agenda. They need and are losing control of people. Congress, you see these polls, the approval rating for Obama is at an all-time low. Congress his approval rating is now at an all-time low. The American people's belief and trust in the mainstream news is at an all-time low. They need to do something to bring it back full circle, and grab the attention of the American people, to have the trust of the American people. And it might not be as, 9/11 wasn't really, that easy to interpret it as a false flag immediately for some people. So I would say that they would have to do something much more divisive, with much more deception, and really pull one over on the people.
And don't forget the anthrax attacks that took place right after, or really concurrent with the attacks of September 11th. Of course, that didn't really those weren't really manifested until after, at the beginning of October.
The anthrax that was sent from the military base to the Congress members
and the media, yeah, that one. Yeah, some very stark talk from Dick Cheney, but I do believe, folks, you've got to look at everything that's taking place today, all as one movie, one picture, one play, parts of the same play. Look at the big picture. Look at where we're being driven.
Absolutely.
Look at the agenda.
And we see, if you go back to 9/11, you go back to the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, the toppling of their governments, the rebuilding of Afghanistan, the rebuilding of Iraq and their government, Afghanistan for purposes of the poppy fields, and Iraq for the purposes of, the oil. But listen to this clip. This is this came out today. ISIS captures biggest oil refinery in Iraq.
Sunni militants from ISIS have reportedly seized the country's largest oil refinery in the town of Baiji. 2 weeks ago, they launched a ruthless insurgency campaign, capturing key cities and large swathes of land. They still have Baghdad in their sights. ISIS radicals have been carrying out attacks on the Baiji refinery for the past 10 days, and there were intense clashes with the army, but troops had managed to repel the fighters until now. Let's see why this area is so crucial, and here's why it's important. Well, Baiji accounts for more than a quarter of Iraq's entire refining capacity. The facility processes about 300,000 barrels a day, supplying petrol stations nationwide as well as power plants. Battles over the Baiji refinery have already led to petrol rationing, but its seizure could mean massive queues at gas stations and lengthy electricity outages. At its heart, this conflict is deep-rooted along religious lines. The Sunni-dominated Northwest has historically been at odds.
Okay, we don't have to get into the history of the conflict, but they're being reported, ISIS taking over one of the largest oil refineries in Iraq, and there are reports about the implications here at home of gas prices rising, to all-time highs, and that will coincide with all-time highs of food prices and the stock market and the all-time low value of the dollar.
Well, the eradication of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency is the goal here.
It's
and everything else is.
the gas prices are high because of the Middle East crisis. Well, it could be, but it's also because of the lack of value in the dollar.
Right, and also our lack of refining and production here domestically. And even the Keystone Pipeline, one can argue effectively in favor of the pipeline.
Did you see they built a new pipeline, or are building one that was approved from Canada to China or Russia, I believe? It was up in Canada.
Yeah. Well, the Canadians were tired of waiting on America. And once again, I think that this plays into the larger picture. Again, we have to look at this as a huge picture. Folks, ISIS, I'm telling you, ISIS is just part of the picture. Benghazi is part of the picture. The gas and oil price is part of it. The devaluation of the dollar is the ultimate objective here, along with establishing the Islamic Caliphate, the old world order rising to the new world order. This is all part of it. And also part of it, too, is the Cloward-Piven approach to the border.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because there's an article today about the Barack Obama and the strategy of manufactured crisis, Cloward and Piven strategy, part 2. And it goes through a long bullet points of different historical facts and different strategies, with Cloward and Piven, who they were, the tactics that they used, how they're rooted from Alinsky, and there's rules from radicals.
Saul Alinsky, yeah. Yep.
They want to eradicate all Judeo-Christian morals. They want to bring in the eugenics. They want to basically, and also divide and conquer. They refer to it here as to create a political, financial, and social chaos that will result in a revolution, blended in with concepts of Saul Alinsky. The more aggressive efforts at bringing about change in the U.S. government to achieve this change, Cloward and Piven sought to use a carte of aggression organizers assisted by friendly news media to force redistribution of nations' wealth. And it goes on to say, by crisis we mean publicly visible disruption in some institutional sphere. A crisis can occur spontaneously, or as the intended results of tactics, demonstration, and protest, which either generate institutional disruption or to bring unorganization and disruption to public attention.
Well, actually, yeah, you're absolutely right. You think back to the 1960s. By the way, Richard Cloward and Frances Fox Piven, they were married. They were 2 professors. Cloward's dead. Frances Fox Piven is running around, I think, with Hillary Clinton at this point. But they're Marxist, and that was their strategy.
The strategy was first put out on May 2nd, 1966, in the issue of The Nation magazine. And the strategy of forcing political change through orchestrated crises.
Well, we have to look at the tidal wave of illegals. That is no accident. This is by design. This is entirely a result of conditions in Central America, which, by the way, if you look at what's going on, we opened up a front with Ukraine, with Crimea, the Western intelligence, specifically the United States. Did we expect Putin not to do anything, to not perhaps open up another front to make things a little bit worse in Central America? Of course not. So, this is all part of it. And I had a conversation with W here not too long ago, asking, well, gee whiz, it sounds like almost like Putin and Obama are almost working together to destroy the country, and it's at various levels they are. It's you have to trace the roots even higher than the levels of Putin and Obama. So, but if you look at what's taking place, this is no accident. This is by design, and we've got some. I think it's controversial audio. I'm not sure when you want to play that, but
I never found the shortest version. I found was 16 minutes.
Right.
But Glenn Beck was talking about. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Where he got a lot of heat and is getting a lot of heat for support for.
He's raising money to help the illegal children that are here, and he made the point that they're obviously came here illegally, and he says and the reason for doing this is because he says the government helping, is basically taxing 60 to 70 cents on every dollar that goes to help. Instead, donate to his organization, and 100% of the money will go to help these children. And he says that, because they are children, because they are in need, that we are not to turn a blind eye on them just because they're here illegally.
Well, yeah, I totally disagree with his approach. I disagree. Look, I understand. We're talking about human beings, human lives. I do understand that.
I agree that you help somebody if there is a life-sustaining, if there is something that is going to make them, drastically sick, they're going to die, if they need help, you're in a position to help them. Yes, you do.
Well,
you don't go out of your way to help people who are breaking the law, who would have the resources, would have and do have the ability, just wanting more. And we're talking about kids here. Kids aren't making the decisions to leave their house en masse and come to America.
Well, are we talking about children? Are we talking about or young adults, or both? I think we're talking about a wide range, right?
But the agenda of why they're coming up here, the reasons why they're coming up here in such large numbers, is not because they all decided to get together and to have a field trip.
No, but the message was put out: hey, you come up here, and we will. The United States will reunite you with your loved ones, with your relatives. They're not going to kick you out. They're going to give you, financial aid. And
remember last year we reported on them playing commercials advertising food stamps in Mexico.
Exactly, and this is that whole process on steroids. And folks, don't forget the demographics of the country radically changed under Lyndon Baines Johnson and the Congress back in 1965 with the Immigration Act back then. And look at what just a dismal failure that was. Well, this is by executive fiat, or dare I say it, executive level conspiracy, and by definition conspiracy, to bring up these young adults, even some gang members. The Border Patrol has reported seeing young men with gang tattoos on them, and of course we are shipping these young people to their relatives in different states. That's a violation of federal law. So what Glenn Beck, and this is where I have significant disagreement with Glenn Beck, what he's doing is assisting, abating, and abetting a federal crime. Wow. And using your donor money to do it as well. From
a biblical Christian perspective, it's hard to say, don't help these people. But the way I don't want to accuse him of doing something he's not, but we know this is a divisive issue. We know that there is beliefs on either side that are probably legitimate and something that we need to consider. But is this a way to further divide people by giving it a legitimate? Because people, not that he's taking the Bible or how to treat people and twisting it, but you can use that in a way that's not accurate, not proper, and deceive even more people. And I'm not saying he's doing that, but it's something we need to consider.
Interesting perspective there.
I mean, it's like saying, you're talking about somebody who's here illegally. They've broken the law. Say your neighbor went out and robbed a bank, and you aided him because he didn't get away with the money, and now he's wanted, and you helped him with food or shelter. What is that? What happens to you if you get caught? And why is it different?
Doesn't the government take care of you then? Except not in the ways that you might desire. Look, what's happening on our southern border, it's indeed horrifying, but not unexpected. The people who caused it, they're not feeling any remorse for what they've done, what they've caused to happen, and they're going to continue to be disinterested with what the people here legally and indigenous to the United States, at least generationally, 1 or 2 generations, 3 generations, they're not interested in what we've got to say or what we have to say about the immigration policy. The bottom line here is, if you look back in time and history, in my view, the bottom line is they had planned for this through the building of refugee centers and some of these camps to hold large groups of people. Yeah,
it could have been, like we talked about, the emergency provisions that they were gathering. Could have been in anticipation for this. You could have had and as you talked about the drug cartel people, in the aspect that's not being covered, they're so busy focusing on the people that are coming over here. I'm sure people who are older than children that need taken care of are being overlooked, and that's where you can get terrorists. You can get, what Dick Cheney said about somebody shipping a nuclear bomb into America and then driving it around Washington. Certainly becomes a higher possibility of happening when you are not, you don't have a TSA style screening. You're not seeing who's coming in through the southern border. You could be, our government could be aiding certain people to get in through the southern border for purposes, that are nefarious.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly right.
They've done it before, so why wouldn't they do it again?
Well, and we have to look at this in a larger scale. Like I said, it's one big picture. How do you destroy a society? How do you destroy a country? You do it from within. America is a large country, but to destroy our country, it would really most effectively be done from within, in changing the demographics. And I'm not talking about Democrat, Republican. I'm not talking about voting demographics. I'm talking about cultural demographics. Take away our language. Take away our moral fabric. Take away our culture. And what's the identification of a society or of a country? It's the culture. Yes, multiculturalism is a positive thing. However, not when it's done, not when it's felonious. And certainly, look, we just have to go back to 1965, folks. Study what happened there, and you can see what a mess this country, what a mess that transpired when Johnson decided, okay, we're going to open up our doors to the Latin Americans, or to Latin America, and to certain countries outside of Europe, which, boy, you talk about a racist policy. That, to me, arguably, Lyndon Baines Johnson certainly was a racist, but again, not in the ways that most people might think. But having said all of that, folks are looking at just one scene of a larger play.
Absolutely. We have, also things that are happening that are not being reported. You have these major scandals from the IRS to the VA to these different things that are in the news. Well, I found an interesting article from today. United Nations seeks U.S.-based disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration specialist. It's a posting, a job title through the UN Department of Peacekeeping Operations. And
I got about 5 or 6 emails about that YouTube video, as well as the job posting over the weekend.
Yeah, I didn't see the YouTube video. I just saw this article, and it says, according to the United Nations information page on this disarmament program, New York Post will involve various aspects related to the process by which a governing organization would confiscate firearms, all of which target what the UN calls small arms. Now, disarmament is the collection, documentation, control, and disposal of small arms, ammunition, explosives from a civilian population. Notice in there, disarmament talks about documentation aside from collection. We're seeing that being a national policy.
Right. This is something that, folks, we really have to keep our eyes on. You look at a posting like this, a job posting that is, and you think, okay, what's the the real deal here? Could it be this blatant? Is this what they're going after? I mean, is this actually what it appears to be? Now, I would caution people because, I do believe that this is the ultimate objective. Is of course and Kevin Shipp said it last night. Look, they've got to disarm us. They've got to disarm the citizenry in order to really fully conquer us. But as I mentioned last night during the program, we have a new store open. What is it, Field and Stream up here? And I had an opportunity just to stop in briefly, and I couldn't believe the number of people who were looking at buying guns and ammunition. I'm talking about lines to buy ammunition, lines to they actually had numbers, like a bakery would, to handle the customers at the gun.
Like they used to at the grocery stores. You can never wait for your help at the deli counter.
Exactly. No, boy, all I can say is if that is the case, then it's going to be bloody indeed.
And I agree with you 100%. In some other news here, I wanted to talk about this a little bit, and this will tie in this Huffington Post article. Then we'll tie it into some news on gay marriage. But this from the Huffington Post today: religious objections to vaccines can't threaten public health, rules a judge. Judge William Kuntz II has ruled to uphold a New York City policy that bars unvaccinated children from attending school when another student has a disease preventable by a vaccination.
Okay.
Now, the headline
wait a
doesn't
second.
sound right with the first paragraph.
Yeah.
The headline says, religious objections to vaccines can't threaten public health. So the title is misleading.
Well,
the judge upheld the ruling to bar children.
Must not instead of can't.
Okay.
I suppose it would be more...
Yasmin Hafiz is the author.
Okay.
In the ruling, Kuntz wrote that the Supreme Court strongly suggested the religious objectors are not constitutionally exempt from vaccines. 3 families filed a suit contending that the school's policy preventing their unvaccinated children from attending the school at risky times is a First Amendment violation of religious freedom. The Brooklyn Eagle reported that Nicole Phillips, Fabian Veka, and Diana Cheek had decided not to vaccinate their children on the grounds of sincere religious belief. From a public health standpoint, the small unvaccinated percentage of the population threatens efforts to eradicate preventable diseases. I'm getting an echo here.
I'm getting a terrible echo in my headphones as well.
All right.
Let's see here. What's going on, folks?
You guys hearing an echo in the chat room? Okay, you are. Tim is, at least.
All right. It appears to have subsided. I don't know.
It must have a mind of its own tonight here. Anyway, they go on to say in this article that the small unvaccinated percentage of the population threatens efforts to eradicate preventable diseases. And it says that the population must be vaccinated in order to prevent an outbreak. And it says that the highly contagious diseases like measles, percentages are as high as 95%, which means even a few unvaccinated children could pose hazard to an entire school. Now, the common sense aspect that we've went through on this issue many times is if you have 30 kids in a classroom, 29 are vaccinated, they're supposed to be protected from whatever disease or virus is going around that they were vaccinated from. What does that one child, what kind of threat could that child pose to the rest of the students who have been vaccinated and shouldn't get the disease regardless?
Well, that's correct. But again, part of the bigger picture, we are losing our freedoms. That includes our freedoms over our own persons, medically. And can you see this developing now into, as Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act develops, can you see this becoming a requirement? Can you see now how the IRS, as the unfettered and unhinged enforcement branch of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act will in fact require you to be vaccinated, or will require you to do something, even if it's against your religious beliefs. That's what this judge is saying.
We're seeing it in schools. We're seeing it we even last year took a call from a nurse, and we know that many health employees have been fired or let go if they refuse to be inoculated like everybody else. And yes, will we see it be a national policy? Will we see it be part of the national government-run healthcare? Absolutely. They have to.
It must be. And just like, once again, just like the digital currency that will be coming, and folks, again, we'll be talking about that tomorrow night, just like that, the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, will in fact be the digital equivalent: record-keeping, enforcement, monitoring your movements. This is the bigger picture. And you know, again, I was talking with W here over the weekend, and what's interesting as well, we're seeing all of these scandals, these crimes being tossed out there. It's like whack-a-mole in Washington. He made a joke, and folks, think about this. Recall Clinton, his presidency. Boy, anytime things heated up with Monica Lewinsky or Jennifer Flowers or whoever, he made a joke, and he said that the worst job to have was the third shift position at some aspirin factory overseas, because of course, you know, the bombs would fly and the factory that was allegedly producing chemical weapons or some other contraband would be blown up, and of course the third shift or late night working janitor would be the casualty. Doesn't that make a little bit of sense here as we see these various things pop up, and they're popping up everywhere? Other things are being used to distract us from seeing the bigger picture. So that's just, I think that was worthy to note.
Absolutely. And I'm going to play a clip here from a senator, and he was interviewed and asked about gay marriage today. This is a 2-minute clip of
it's always a crowd pleaser.
What he had to say.
That these social issues are going to primarily be decided in the states through a democratic process, and that's the way it should happen. And then, I'll certainly go with the judgment of the American people in terms of where they want to fall on whether it's abortion issues or whether it's gay marriage or whatever. Let the voters decide that, and I think that's probably the most appropriate place. Generally, these things aren't really decided on a national basis, but from the standpoint of immigration, we've got a lot of migrant workers in Wisconsin. I've never had a migrant worker ask me for citizenship. They just don't want us to deport their moms and dads or husbands and wives. I don't think we're going to do that. We need to actually solve this problem. We need a functioning legal immigration system. The way you secure your borders is you eliminate or certainly reduce all the incentives for illegal immigration. So you have to have a functioning guest worker program, and things like e-verify. We have to really be concerned about the southern border in Mexico, because that's right now where most of these young people are coming from because of all the violence in places like Guatemala. So these are huge challenges. This is a point in time where we really got to concentrate on the big issues. Try not to let the other issues that really aren't going to be decided in the federal government. Let's not let those take over our elections.
I know you want to avoid talking about the social issues, but on gay marriage, Joe had a tough conversation with Governor Perry last week on that very issue, and it is a defining issue for so many people.
I understand that, and again, that will be, and it already is working its way through the states. You're having state government after state government, vote for gay marriage, and in the end, we're going to let the voters decide that. I think that's the best way of doing it.
All right, we're going to let the voters decide about how they feel about gay marriage, if it should be legal or not.
First of all, it's homosexual marriage.
Whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
For the senator to say, we're going to let the voters decide. We've had Many states, from South Dakota, South Carolina, Alabama, Colorado, Tennessee, Virginia, California, a number of states vote against, and Proposition 8 in California was one of the first. Their population voted, over 52% of the people, to ban gay marriage. And in each one of these states I mentioned, and every other state that has had voter decisions on gay marriage that turned it down, the courts have stepped in and overturned what the voters' wishes were in order to legalize same-sex marriage. So for the senator to come out here in 2014 and say, we're going to let the voters decide, is, I don't know where he's either an idiot or he has no idea what's happened, what's been going on, or he is, being put on a news network to talk about a certain issue, to put that out there to make people feel like they do have a choice, like they do make a difference or can make a difference, or how their feelings on the issue are, and we're going to let the voters decide. Well, in every single case the voters decided, it's been overturned by a over-authoritative judicial branch. And
very good.
We're seeing this continue. I mean, what is it? I think 17 to 20 states now have overturned bans on same-sex marriage or legalized same-sex marriage. The majority of states that voted, all the states that voted it down, the judges have reversed it.
But think about this: how do you integrate federal law, federal practices, or federal administrative code, such as the taxation process, for example? Let's say Pennsylvania says, no, we're not going to do homosexual marriage. New York says, oh, yeah, we'll do it. How does that work with the federal system now that's in place, specifically with the IRS and the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, for example? Because there's classifications. If you look at the new IRS forms, by the way, I mean, we're already paying taxes for next year, folks. I mean, for next year's filing. And if you look at next year's tax forms for this year, well, you're going to see some definite changes. And those changes reflect fait accompli of homosexual marriages and other issues, which is a violation, as you said, Joe. I mean, this is a violation of, this usurps the will of the people, but it's also a violation of states' rights.
Yes, it is. And we're having a little bit of sound and audio difficulty, so I just been keeping an eye on the weather, because we have a flood warning and a bunch of other warnings up here. We're supposed to get a couple inches of rain within a matter of an hour, and looking to see where this weather is. Well, we are getting hit with some storms, so that could be the cause of some of the anomalies we're hearing. But we are up here, and I hope people in the northeast up here in this area don't get hit with the amount of water that they're calling for, as this could be bad. We get a big flood once every 10 years maybe, and But
I do have to leave at the top of the hour to let you tend to the show by yourself.
Yep.
I don't have an anniversary like you did, but maybe I'll, if I have a chance, fly a kite in the thunderstorm lightning and try to attract the lightning away from your position.
No, you've had a long-standing appointment with the mattress. I know. No, I'm kidding. No, I know you got the personal engagement to attend to. So yeah, I'll be hosting the show with Stan, and then the final hour after Stan leaves, when we take phone calls, you will be gone. So audience, prepare.
Yeah, we're going to grade you on your performance. But back to, you look at the heterosexual, homosexual, the homosexual, militant homosexual agenda. Folks, George Soros, $2 million to NAMBLA donation. National Man and Boy Love Association. Explain that.
I remember when I was younger and the cartoon South Park first came out. It was a very crude, vile cartoon on Comedy Central, and they used to joke about it. That's what I first learned of what NAMBLA was, and I thought it was a joke for many years until somehow I came across it and saw that it was real. And I always thought that was just a joke from that cartoon.
I used to get by watching South Park under my watch.
The first time it came out, the first year it came out, and I forget why I was watching it or who I was watching it with. I didn't even like it. But the whole point of that was they referenced that NAMBLA organization, and I always thought it was just for that show, just a joke for the show. Yeah, you're talking about a pedophile promoting organization that openly states their intentions to be pedophiles.
Absolutely. And people don't, so a lot of people don't believe this. I suppose we can go from the 3%, and I suspect that's pretty generous, that actually engage in this lifestyle. You're looking at a 3% of the population that is dictating to the 97%, the vast majority, who have religious and social and moral convictions against this lifestyle. And you've got a government that is catering to the 3%. How does that work? Well, we know why. And, it's interesting if you look at the science behind homosexuality. And I can tell you right now, will I be getting the emails? Because every time I talk against homosexuality, my inbox gets flooded. I mean, you just can't believe it. And boy, they're not nice either. So I fully expect this to take place. But having said that, there have been scientific studies done, peer-reviewed, reputable studies that do indicate that the homosexual lifestyle is one that has it's a behavioral choice, not something that is built within your DNA or your makeup. Now, okay, let the emails fly.
Send them to just kidding. But yeah, I remember Coach Dave when he came on. If you go to his website and listen to his commentaries, he has one. I believe it's titled, the hate speech or the truth is hate speech, where he reads through the emails he gets for talking out against homosexual marriage and homosexual practices, and the amount of hate, the language that's used, you would think that this guy went around and was killing people's children for the type of emails he was getting.
Yeah, and exactly, you're exactly correct. You know what, Joe? I don't understand what it is about that particular subject. We could talk about abortion. We could talk about the war. We could call Obama a racist name, and I would not get half the emails I get.
5 years ago you would have, but now, not so much. But the gay marriage issue is a issue where I believe, as well as government infiltrators, you have groups of people that go to any person who speaks out against it, and they flood those people's media outlets, whether their websites or comment boards, whatever, and they attack them. Anybody who speaks out against it gets attacked by coordinated, organized groups.
Greg Jackson has done a nice job in his works talking about the homosexual agenda. Folks, I've got to tell you, he really gets into the mechanics, the arguments, and it's incredible. To me, listening and reading and researching this, once again, we've got to think bigger. We've got to look at the bigger picture. It's just not about homosexual marriage. It's not. By the way, it's not about the rights of homosexuals. It has nothing to do with anything. This is about special rights, special practices. or special characterizations.
I mean, in school you can't talk out against homosexuality, but in California, I remember reading the story where the guidance counselors were only allowed by law to train children in homosexual information. They could not train them towards heterosexual information. And I saw a compilation video, and one of the clips of the video showed a assembly of probably kindergartners to second graders, where there was a gay pride flag hoisted on their stage, and the lady explained what it was and what the acronym, gay, transgender, trans, whatever, and they made the kids repeat it over and over. And it made me sick to my stomach, because you could see exactly what they're doing. They were indoctrinating these kids, making them feel as if this homosexuality was natural, that it was okay, it was acceptable. Actually, it's frowned upon to be heterosexual. It is, here's a cookie if you're a homosexual. Special rights, as you said.
Exactly. And again, look at this. Step back from the stage, folks. Step back. Look at the entire screenplay. Look at the cast, crew, the production people. Look at the directors, the producers. Look at the entire cadre of people involved in the destruction, the dismantling of this country. Because part of the granting of special rights to the homosexual class is a direct attack on our Constitution. I don't know how else to describe it. If I suppose, I was reading an old textbook from college days. It's facts, or I can't find it right now. Oh, here it is, right here. No, that's not it. It talks about here it is. Hang on a second here. It's called The Thinker's Guide to Fallacies, the Art of Mental Trickery and Manipulation. And it talks about the straw man arguments, the different types of arguments, and the how to detect, fallacy detection, analyzing a current, gets into a current speech, presidential speech. And actually, this is a reprint, because this is a lot newer than the one I remember. But having said all of that, is the appeal to the passions of the people involved in this lifestyle, and anything less than, or any less, anything beside that, of course, is they're directing the argument to the passions of the people in favor of that particular lifestyle. I don't know how else to explain it, but certainly it's not constitutionally mandated. There are no special rights for homosexual marriages, nor for heterosexual marriages. We're all one, are we not, under the laws of the Constitution? Certainly we are. So, anyway, we're at the top of the hour.
Yeah, with that, we're going to take the top of the hour break. We're going to come back with Stan Dayo on the other side for our Tuesdays with Stan. We'll be right back after these short messages. You're listening to the Hagmann Hagmann Report on this Tuesday, June 24th, 2014, edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report, June 24th, 2014. We are joined by our very special guest who joins us each Tuesday at the second hour, Mr. Stan Dayo. His website is standayo.com. Stan, it's great to have you back on the show this week.
Good to be back again.
Just want to tell you, my father had a personal engagement. He will be gone for the remainder of the show, so it's just you and me this hour.
Okay.
Just wanted to give you a warning.
Alrighty.
But,
not worried.
So how are things in Stan's world?
Oh, busy. I'm still preparing a heap of things for the press release and the lecture at the end of next month for this prophecy conference in Colorado Springs. You wouldn't believe the amount of messing around you have to do to get copyright clearances on showing little bits and pieces of film and things that are germane to what I'm doing. But anyway, that's another thing. I'm very busy doing that, probably 16 to 18 hours a day every day, and still running behind. Did run across one interesting thing that I'll share with you here. In fact, it's if you go to our show images page, I've got it up for today's talk. It's standdayo.com, and then click on the show images link under the microphone there. I found something very unusual in the Indian Ocean. There's an article in the news about the Earth's magnetic field weakening, and certain parts of the planet, the field is growing stronger, while other parts it's growing weaker. And it's relative. I mean, it's not like falling over dead or anything, but it's indicating to me that the magnetic pole inversion or reversal is starting. And as NASA's models have shown over on their site, as the magnetic poles of the Earth start to reverse, it could create two north-south poles within the planet. Like, in other words, a north-south pole magnet drifting over to a warm part of the planet, in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, another one flipping over, so that we actually have two magnetic pole north and two magnetic pole south paired off with each other, obviously, and flipping around inside the Earth as this pole reversal starts. So while I was looking at that, I thought, well, what about gravity? And I found something I'd overlooked years ago about a gravity anomaly in the Indian Ocean. And it's between Indonesia and the eastern side of Africa, of Somalia particularly. And it's a huge reduction in gravity, like the Earth's crust is very thin there. And yet, to the east of that, on the right side of it, you can see by clicking on the image I've got there, in Indonesia and northern parts of Australia and New Guinea, and also up in Europe, there is an increase in mass, like it's really red, showing that there's a high concentration of gravitational mass on the surface of the Earth. Now, what does all this mean? Something caused the mass over in the northern Indian Ocean to spring away, to pile up in various parts of the planet in Europe and in Asia, leaving a void of gravitational field in the northern Indian Ocean. Now, you'll notice to the left of what I've got there on the site, I've put meteor impacts and how they move tectonic plates. And on the exact opposite side, the antipodal position of the northern Indian Ocean is the Gulf of Mexico, and in particular, the Yucatan Peninsula, where the Chicxulub meteor struck, according to conventional wisdom, millions of years ago, and left a crater there and shoved up, debris and stuff up into Texas and Louisiana and Mississippi. Well, if you think about it, and that 6-mile wide meteor hurtling through the space and then hitting the Earth, going down into the Earth and producing a shock wave that's like an earthquake, but it's directed, it would go toward the core of the planet, which is spinning slightly eastward, bounce around it like shock waves do from earthquakes, but much, much, much stronger. I mean, a million times stronger, really big. And these focused shock waves would have pushed up underneath the landmass, which historians or geologists call Pangea, when everything was all together and the continents weren't formed yet. And that spot would have been in the North Indian Ocean. Now, it appears to me that this Chicxulub meteor, which was big, and they suspect it had something to do with the extinction of the dinosaurs, which, again, they say millions of years ago, which I don't believe. I think we've got catastrophic things happening in shorter term periods, in thousands of years, not in millions. But this impact shoved up there, and it broke Pangea apart and shoved mass over towards Asia, in northern Australia, and over and up towards Europe, where the mountains are there, and also part of the Himalayas. But the majority of the mass was scooted to the northwest of the North Indian Ocean and to the east of it. And I'm just thinking that with that in mind, I'm going to address this, I think, at the conference as well, in one of the lectures, because it is such a critical factor in determining whether the biblical account of how old things are is correct or not. I'm not saying that everything on the Earth has to be within the last 6,000 years, but human history is, and I suspect that it's not like longer than 50,000 years that the Earth's magnetic field has been in existence. You can calculate that by looking at the field strength of the magnetic field of the Earth and backdating it with equations, and you can see that before when the magnetic field was formed for the Earth, way back in the molten stage, that's the hysteresis point, is what they call it, and you can calculate backwards to about 50,000 years ago, when we were molten mass, and then things started to cool, and the magnetic field started to weaken, and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, these are I guess technical issues that I'm putting some people to sleep with this, but basically what I'm trying to do here is to tell you that I think I have found out what separated Pangea, and possibly in the time of Peleg, which is only 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, depending on how you go. I guess about 4,000 years ago, how you do the dating. Now, this is pretty earth-shaking stuff, and it's still early days. I'm having to think about it, but that's why I posted this up on the show images page, because it's just something really, really extraordinary as far as my research. Anyway, that's one of the things, and then of course I've been Holly's been doing news for me here. Not that we posted all, but she's put up some today, and I've been working a lot, but I have been paying attention to some of the news, and there's a number of things that are interesting. Did you see about the red heifer they've shipped over to Israel?
I did see that, and I'm not too familiar with the significance of this, but if I remember correctly, the headline was the third red heifer?
Yeah, what they've done is they've had a number. The red heifer cannot even have one single non-red hair on its body. I mean, it has to be perfect according to the kosher laws for temple worship. Now, in the old days, Moses instituted this business where he was told by God, okay, find a perfect red heifer, without blemish, without birthmarks, et cetera, et cetera. Slaughter this animal, have the priest do it, one of the priests, and take the animal and its dung and put it together and burn it and make an ash from that you store, in the temple. And then you mix it with water and you sprinkle that over various people who come to be cleansed of their sins, and that, of course, was doing it. It's interesting when you look at that. I mean, it's in Numbers in the Bible, Numbers 19:2. Find a red heifer without spot, where there's no blemish, and it's never been yoked, to a wagon or anything. And it tells how to prepare it with cedar wood and hyssop and scarlet and burn it, get the ash and all that kind of stuff. But the Quran, strangely enough, in its strange relationship to the Torah, does have what's called a surah, like a book, and it's called Al-Baqarah. And in the Quran, they speak about a yellow cow, and relate this back to Moses as well. And they say, the yellow cow, you slaughter it and you take the meat of it, and you can slap the body of someone who's been murdered, and they'll come back to life long enough to tell you who murdered them, then they'll die again. But there are little weird things like that are almost like rumors and gossip that come to the writers of the Quran, to Muhammad, whatever, based upon Israeli teachings from the Torah. And they pervert them into these weird stories. But anyway, it was just an interesting aside on that. We're getting closer to temple worship, and if the third red heifer, if this one does meet all the requirements, then they can prepare its body ritually, the remains of the ashes for the waters of purification for the people of Israel when the new temple is built. But it just tells us we're very close to someone putting that new temple together, and the Antichrist will be in that period, in that time period, which means we're, right on the doorsteps of the tribulation somewhere. Anyway, that's.
If we can, Stan, maybe you can answer this. A lot of people seem to be conflicted about a third temple being built versus the third temple that's established inside of us. In your studies and experience, what shows you that there will be a temple built, if you know offhand, that there will be a physical, actual temple built.
Well, how is it that the Antichrist can erect the abomination which makes desolate in the temple if it's in your body? Do you see what I'm saying? And it tells the people to flee from Jerusalem. To me, that tells me it's a physical temple.
Okay, and one thing I'd like to add, I have thought about this to a great extent, and the only thing that came to mind that could be what you just referenced, outside of an actual physical building, was something, the devil somehow getting in the way between you and the Holy Spirit in your body. And like I said, I could be way off. It was just a thought, but that's something that I would think about, that the mark of the beast would be implemented, and through that, we have these holographic images and all these technological advances where they can project people and things and thoughts and obviously even voices into people's head. What if they were able to project something that interfered with the Holy Spirit and the body and the soul?
Well, that wouldn't be good, now would it? I don't think that's the case, but God is in control, and if you believe that, which I do, then He will prevent that. It will not be possible. I'm studying Daniel in the original languages, because Daniel mixes up a couple of things in different languages for coding purposes, but it does at that point tell me that it's a physical new temple. And it could be built rather rapidly, within a few years, less than 3 years, I'm sure, with modern technology. And it might not be the grandeur of the one that that Moses built, or the second temple there, Herod the Great's time, but it could be built, and I think that there'll be a reason for that in the Antichrist handling of the religious situation of the various religions of the world, rather than the Jewish or Christian faith, but the religions per se. And I think he'll use it as a means of controlling them all and uniting them with the help of his false prophet, who will, run the world church, as it were.
Okay. Another question. I saw an article, and I don't know if I was gone yesterday. I was gone all weekend. It was my anniversary, my second anniversary, and we went to Buffalo. So we got away for a few days. But before I left, I saw an article about the volcanic activity in the Hawaii Island region picking up. And I know this is something that you talked about, especially I think you mentioned the bigger volcano that is south of Hawaii. But are you concerned with any of this uptick in activity that we're seeing around Hawaii?
Oh, yeah. That plus the earthquakes. And then, Etna over in Italy. These things are warming up, which to me indicate an increase in geological activity. I'm of mixed opinions, mixed decision in my mind about what is causing this, what's the driving force. It is almost as though there's something in the core of the Earth that is causing a lot of this versus, activity of the sun. I just have not been seeing what I thought we would see from the sun, yet we're seeing the results in the climate change, in the magnetic field. There's some other driving mechanism, I think, that is making these volcanoes, like Mauna Loa, and earthquakes occurring, which are, becoming rather frequent and large. We're seeing this year an increase in that. Don't ask me what percent, but I am seeing that. And again, Scripture does say that in the end days of this age, there will be an increase in earthquakes in diverse places. And a burning mountain will be cast into the sea. Well, the ancients used the term burning mountain for volcanoes. That's what they meant. Let's keep an eye on all these things. I do think that we're seeing an increase in that, and these earthquakes in Oklahoma City and around there have been of concern. And the new earthquake swarm over the last month or so up in northern Alaska, way up there above the Aleutians, way up there above that. And there's no plate tectonic known fissures in that area, or earthquake zones or fault lines. So it's interesting to see that that's forming, which tells me that there's increased plate activity, which is going to be serious, and we need to keep an eye on it. the drought in California is absolutely decimating the farming industry there and the crops, turning it into a dust bowl instead of being in the Kansas, Missouri area like it was in the Dust Bowl age after the stock market crash in that period of time there. We're now seeing it over in California, and I suspect with this current El Nino that is in progress now, there will be certain areas of the West, like Arizona, Colorado, maybe part of northwest Texas and Oklahoma, which will see increases in rainfall, I think. I'm certain that Colorado will see it. We're already seeing it now, at least here in the high desert area where we are here in Pueblo, west, south of Colorado Springs. We've actually put our rain gauge out to start measuring stuff. We had, like over 3/4 of an inch here about 2 weeks ago, and I'm thinking, wow, this is great because we nearly blow away every summer. But it's a 20-year cycle that's now starting here, which is tied to El Ninos. So for us here, El Ninos are good, but California is not doing well, which means that all those hungry people that eat, a lot of vegetables and crops out of the San Joaquin Valley in Southern California as well, will be paying a lot more for a lot less. And it's getting worse. And when you add a lot of hungry children coming across the border without parents, there's a bigger demand on our food resources. And when you look at the fact that 1/3 of the United States is in poverty and on food stamps and whatever, and unemployed, like 90 some odd million people, we're in serious situation here. I'm hearing reports from other ministries, on how people are not doing as much as they used to, not coming to the meetings, or the numbers are falling off. It's because people are getting broke, and they're having to turn in for their own problems. A lot of the ministries and tax-exempt organizations are complaining their donations are down considerably, and that's because people can't afford them. I mean, shoot, Holly and I aren't giving as much anymore because we aren't making as much, and so we know that there's an increasing poverty line in the United States, which is affecting a lot of us and driving us all closer to that unhappy state of, civil disobedience if the government keeps on like this.
Back to what you talked about with the what you noticed in the ocean. I have a question from a listener named Debbie. She says, could you please ask Mr. Dayo if what he found in the ocean could make the Earth stand still?
Well, it would not make it stand still per se, because if the Earth were to stop rotating, we would all either collapse into the center from a strong gravitational field or be thrown off. In my opinion, if the Earth stood still, the gravitational field would just totally go to zero and we'd all float off in pieces. However, there is a way, according to what was written in the Bible in the Old Testament, that the Earth's axis of spin can change from such an impact. And in fact, that probably occurred in 2345 BC. The Earth's spin axis can change, in this case 23.4 degrees, and as it's changing and starting to turn a different spin axis, there will be a spot on the Earth, and I assume in the Old Testament it was a spot in the Middle East in Israel, that does not appear to see the day end because it is rotating around a new axis, and until it finds that new axis, it's hard to explain without waving hands and taking an apple, or an orange or something to show you. But there's a way that you can turn like that, and the sun will hang in the sky to a certain percentage of the surface of the Earth. That's what it will appear like. But I don't think the Earth actually stopped. It's just that the position of the sun stayed in a like a noon position, if you wish, as the Earth started to rotate about a new axis and spun around. That's my opinion anyway, but based on physics and gyroscopes and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. And you talked about the continent, how the Earth was once one I think it was Pangea.
Mm-hmm.
That's always interested me in how and I believe as you do, the Earth is not as old as people say, and they try to say dinosaurs are 65 million years old, etc. But with the people on Earth, they would apparently wouldn't notice or it would be a minimal nuisance to have a huge continent as it was breaking apart and moving throughout different places into the Earth. There doesn't seem to be, we have the flood, the story of the Great Flood, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of disturbance throughout history, as you would think from the crust breaking into different pieces and spreading across the Earth.
One Egyptian pharaoh did, have his scribes record his displeasure over the earth moaning and groaning and cracking and popping. Velikovsky did mention this briefly in one of his books. I think it was Earth and Upheaval. Now, he may attribute it to a different cause, but basically it was an astronomical cause which caused the Earth the continents to break apart. Now, I'm going to address this in the Garden of Eden lecture because it's germane to what I'm doing, and I've made some animations to show people what I'm talking about. But in the time of Peleg, the Earth was divided, and when you look at what it's meaning in the Hebrew, it's like the dirt was split apart. Now, when the flood occurred, which was just a little bit before that, several hundred years, the fountains of the deep were broken up. Now, what happened? The fountains of the deep, the waters that spread across the earth for the flood, weren't from 40 days and nights of rain, although they had not had rain before that. It was from the fountains of the deep being broken up, which persisted for 110 days, much longer than the rainfall did. Now, in the last month, scientists here in the United States have discovered and announced the presence of a huge reservoir of water, a shell underneath the surface of the Earth 400 miles down in a particular kind of rock that when you put it under pressure releases the water. And the volume of fresh water, well, it's got minerals in it, but it's not too bad. The volume of water in that shell is equal to or greater than all the oceans of the Earth. And when you shrink the Earth down from its present diameter, just 25%. Let's say to 80% of what it is now. When you shrink it down and you add core pressure to the Earth, either from a Chicxulub-type meteor impact or some other phenomenon causing the core pressure to increase on the Earth, you will see that it can squeeze out like a hypodermic water from these fountains of the deep, which would have been hot, just as the Hebrew says, and the flood, they were hot water, and squeeze it up. And the scientist, in one of the articles there that I saw, he said, as a last line of it, he says, you ought to thank your lucky stars that it is being held down there in that formation 400 miles down, because if it were released, it would flood the high mountains of the Earth. And I thought, man, that guy, wow, you're right. And on top of that layer, we also have what's called the Moho discontinuity, which is a fluid, a water fluid with a lot of minerals in it. It's about 3 times as salty as fresh water. And that, too, would have been a remnant or part of the expansion of the core, which, started the plate tectonics, or the Pangea split. Now, it can happen over a period of several months or years, but I don't think centuries, just several months to several years. And I've got proof now then. I've got proof in archaeological records and some mysteries in Central America and in the Middle East that in modern times, when humans were here, in that 6,000-year period we're talking about, the modern humans were here, that the Earth was all together and that people were dwelling in areas that slowly started to separate, and they had time to jump on one side of the split or the other. And you wait till I show you. I mean, it's again like waving my hands in the air to try to explain it over the radio. But there are some great mysteries about the dinosaurs and footprints of humans walking alongside of or just behind or just ahead of dinosaurs in the Glen Rose, Texas Museum. I mean, I've been there and laid in the footprint of the dinosaur, which had a human footprint path going along with it up through. They've excavated more of it up into the riverbank and up beyond that. And that's, all this tells you that dinosaurs and humans coexisted at that time. There's something drastically wrong with the way that we date, radiocarbon date things. And one of the major factors is the speed of light or electromagnetic radiation has been diminishing since the creation of things rapidly. And we're now on the end of a very sharp exponential curve. And the speed of light is much, 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 much slower than it was. And this has a lot to do with radiocarbon-14 dating, also the depositing rates at which radiocarbon-14 is produced. And it has to do with the halide type analyses of formations to see how old things are. And you'll find that it's very inbred that geological layers quote archaeological layers for timing, and archaeological layers quote geological layers based upon this science. It's not correct. Now, we need to readjust our chronometers and allow for the speed of light increase. Now, Barry Setterfield is probably the leading expert on this, and it's under a website. He's a friend of mine. His name is Barry Setterfield, and his website is setterfield.org, SETTERFIELD.org. And in there, you will find not only his work, but the work that he put together, organized, and got ready for publication of a scientist, an astronomer, down in Australia. He was the official South Australian government astronomer in the early 60s, and he discovered something about the Earth's axis and the spin of it that is, it gives us the ability to mathematically calculate when the flood occurred, and that calculates back to 2345 BC. And his paper, his name is George Dodwell, Dodwell, is on Setterfield's site, and you must look at that and read that and endure it, because it does tell us, that we can have a young Earth, or at least a young history of mankind's, occupation of Earth in our present form, like modern man, not, the hominids and stuff they talk about. Okay. Anyway, there's just a lot that we're going to have to adjust with science, and there's a growing number of scientists who are saying that the age of the Earth must be shortened because of this change in physics. And there's also a growing number of biblical scholars who are saying that, there are 10 portions of the book of Genesis which Moses wrote down and edited, but they are older than Moses, and these came from clay tablets that came from the Sumerian archives. And I'm a supporter of that, because I can see the different words and phrases used in what they call clay tablet catchphrases that are in the book of Genesis at the beginning of, the story of the creation, the story of Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, and, that kind of stuff. And I've been able, through logic, to determine that at least the Garden of Eden portion, that particular clay tablet that Moses used, was written probably either by Shem or one of his sons or grandsons in that period of time. And I won't go into the details of it here, bore you to death, but that's something I'm working on as well.
I'm really looking forward to, and we're not going to be in Colorado Springs, unfortunately, but we will be getting the live streaming, and I'm really looking forward to your presentations, I should say, on things we've talked about on and off air. It sounds like it's so exciting.
Well, the Garden of Eden to me is that was the highlight of discovery this year for me. Anyway, is probably the oldest secret that has been lost to mankind for nearly 4,000 years, I guess. But because Solomon's story, that's the next lecture, the second one of the series over the conference, and I have found where Solomon's Ophir gold mines were and are today. A lot of them are depleted, but I found some clues in the Bible that tell you exactly. Yeah, he was clever in how he couched it, to tell you exactly where he got his goodies and why he named it Ophir and stuff like that. It's just all these things fit together into such an interesting interlocking puzzle of the ancient world that's just so different from what modern scholars tell us, biblical and physics and geological scholars, of the secular community. It just wow.
Wow. I don't mean to put you on the spot here, Stan, but I'm going to do just that. If you had to choose one out of the 3 presentations you were giving as a favorite, which one would you have to pick?
I think I'm only doing 2, and my favorite would be the Garden of Eden presentation, because it just tells us so many things that we want to know the answers to. It's going to set the bar at a new height as far as interpreting and understanding, the Bible and the origins of man. And people are there's going to be Christians that will say, I don't want to hear this. Moses got the Bible dictated by God. Let me tell you, if God dictated that part of Genesis to God, he did it from a clay tablet. We're positive of that, and we're just going to have to, suck it up and grow and understand that just because we've been always taught this, it's not exactly what was written and who wrote it. We're dealing with very ancient records, and Moses got exposed to them in Egypt in the Pharaoh's libraries when he was, Pharaoh's adopted son, I guess. And we're now able to look into the Word and understand a lot more of it that we couldn't accept or couldn't understand before this. But in this generation, we need to use science and prove the Bible, which is what we're doing. And that Eden lecture is just going to amaze, astound, shock. I don't know any other way to say it. There are just things that are coming out of that I had never expected when I was looking just for a little place called the Garden of Eden. By the way, it's not little. It's over 100 square miles in area, but it's there.
Yeah, last week you talked about this a little bit more in detail, and I have not had a chance to open up Google Earth and open up my Bible and roam around and see if I could find it myself. But I think I'm just going to hold off on that and wait to see your presentation and then go from there and then start my research from there, because it seems like as much time as you said you've put into it, you're talking decades, and you just came across some new information recently. That's one thing that I love about the studying the scriptures is something new. It will always be revealed if you're reading the scriptures for the right reason, if your heart's in the right place, if you're not reading it to find ammunition for an argument or a position you have. If you're reading it for the sole purpose of learning and getting closer to the Lord, He will reveal things to you, and it'll be like reading a new book. You could read the same Old Testament or New Testament book each day, but if you have your mind and heart open to the Lord, it'll be almost like new each time that you read it.
That's true. And I'm sure most Christians who do read the Bible realize that as time passes, they'll go back and read a verse over and they think, oh, well, now I understand what that means even more because of blah, blah, blah. Experience teaches us and current events. There's just a lot of things that are there. I mean, I consider the Garden of Eden probably one of the great treasures, if not the foremost wonder of the world, not 7 wonders, the wonder of the world as far as a site. And I guarantee you that there will be an influx of people going to visit it. Well, if war doesn't break out, religious wars and whatever in the area, but a lot of people will be going there regardless of whether they're Christians in the United States or Jews from Israel or wherever, but they will be going once they see that that's the birthplace of man. And I tell you, what I have found will not conflict with modern physics, with modern geology, with modern biological genetic studies and whatever. All these things fit together.
That's another question I had from a listener, wanting to know if your discovery changed any perspective of the Bible for you. Or let me make sure I get the wording correct here. if it changed your view biblically of anything.
It strengthened my faith, if such is possible. It reassured me, and I could see where Adam walked and where God walked with him in the garden. I could actually see that. I could go there now and walk that dirt, and the finer points of the discussions of Eden or the mentions of it in the Old Testament are now come to life, and I understand why they said what they said. And it in that respect, it has made me believe just stronger than I thought possible. I'm overjoyed, and so is Holly with what we've found. You know how when you read the chronologies in Genesis, such and such begat such and such, begat that, and dwelt there. That's kind of dull and boring, isn't it?
It can be, and unless you are shown something that leads you, to look through that. And Chronicles has the genealogies as well. And I used to think they were boring. I would skip right over that. I wouldn't even bother going through them.
I'm going to open those up for us. The good Lord has inspired me in ways that are just amazing. But now then, the chronologies led to finding ancient civilizations and where they are today, the locations of them by their names and by modern names.
Exactly.
What I thought was dull and boring is a treasure trove. A treasure trove.
Absolutely. I know exactly what what you're talking about, because I've done the same thing. Just an example: when we look at the Psalm 83 or Ezekiel 38 war, Gog and Magog, you go back to the genealogies of the I think it was the first 12 men of Israel, or the first 10 people, I believe, the descendants of Noah. Well, their names are in there, and then I mean, that was one of the first instances where I started to really look in the genealogies and had to read through them all. And then there's significance. You have they had to document this because they documented it from Abraham, down to Moses, to David, to Jesus in the family bloodline.
Well, even before the time of Abraham, all the line of Shem did this. You know what? I found out that whoever wrote, and I think I know who it was, whoever wrote the portion of Genesis on the Garden of Eden, used and thought in Hebrew or Shemitic language, because he names the rivers from right to left as he stood in a certain spot, and he said, this river, that river, going from right to left, like you write Hebrew, right to left. Isn't it amazing the little subtleties you can pick out of that?
Absolutely. And I have a good question from a listener here. It's from John. They say, can you ask Stan if he figured out how the flood changed the garden? And if that's something you could talk about?
Well, yeah, the garden survived the flood. And, this is one of those things that is probably going to get me in trouble, but there is growing evidence that the translation of the word ha'eretz for the flood was more localized around the Persian Gulf and up into the mountains that formed later, and that not all places on the earth were destroyed, but all the creation of the Lord from the Garden of Eden outward, the animals that He created in the Garden of Eden, they were affected by the flood, but not the Garden of Eden itself. I don't see that it was damaged at all by the flood, and I've got videos of it already, live videos of the garden area. And making arrangements at the moment with some of the people in the area, but it just does not show signs of the flood getting inside the garden. It is a protected area. It is shielded.
Wow. Okay.
This will become more evident as I do the lecture.
Fantastic. Okay, let me look here in my stories here. We talked about the sun a little bit earlier. We have I think there was a small CME unleashed, and they're a Damocloid. I'm looking at space weather right now, and I wanted to address we talked about the sunspots and how minimal this solar max is. At the same time, we're seeing a huge increase, and maybe it's due to technological advances and the ability to find meteors, comets, and space rocks that they weren't able to see before. But there seems to be an increase in these space rocks, in these asteroids and these comets. And they're talking about on space weather here, amateur astronomers photograph a damocloid. It's a DAMOCLOID.
Yeah.
And it says there are at least 50 or so moving through the solar system right now. Is this like a cloud of comets or space rocks?
Well, it's like a space rock, and comets, or space rocks that become comets are visible. Usually, it's because of an outgassing of water vapor or other gaseous products that we haven't seen before. In other words, it's like a rock bottle of goodies, and then they haven't released, clouds of gas to form the tail, which identifies a comet. But then they become active like this, and so the damocloid then becomes a comet. One of the things that bothers me about the the Near Earth Orbit project, is that they say, look, we've found all but 100,000 of the near Earth objects that we need to worry about. And I'm thinking, if you haven't found them, how do you know they're there? I mean, duh.
Yeah.
These things could spring up like this damocloid on our doorstep. We'd never know about it because we can't see it because it doesn't emit any light, doesn't reflect any light. Yeah. It's a strange place out there. It really is.
Another question here from a listener, and it's going back to the Garden of Eden. I guess we should have kept this thing a little bit more quiet. This seems to be all we're talking about. Let's see. This is an interesting question. It says, according to the Bible, God kicked man out of Eden and forbid him from re-entering by placing angels with flames to guard it. If the Bible is correct, how can we visit Eden today once the location is disclosed?
Well, the Lord, by his sacrifice, has paid for the sins, and we can go back now. These things are not verboten, and I know where the area is, and I know what they're talking about, but the Hebrew for what they're quoting there does not say angels, and it does not say flaming sword either. But I've found where those are, those three items, and they're just east of the garden there, and they don't block the way, they mark the way. In Hebrew, and Chaldean Hebrew, there are preferred and obsolete usages of verbs that form, nouns and adverbs and adjectives. And the King James translators used what they thought was probably the safe and correct translation of the cherubim and the flaming sword that turned in every which direction. But those are not the ancient usages. To give you an example, it's no plot or skullduggery on anybody's part of the translators, but King James says one of the rivers of Eden went around Ethiopia. Well, when you read in the Hebrew, literally it says around the land of Cush. So they assumed that the Cushites that invaded Egypt and took over the throne, became Pharaoh for one generation before they were overthrown, that those Cushites in the east of the Sudan and Eritrea in that area, and into Ethiopia, that they were the ones spoken of by the tale or by the reference in Genesis about one of the lands that a river went around. And that's not so. By correcting this error, and I corrected in a big way, you find where Cush really is, and it's not there. That's not what the writer of that passage is talking about. There may have been Cushites from that area that went across over into Egypt and made the invasion, and then after they were defeated, they stayed there, moved out of town, up toward Ethiopia and settled there after they were kicked out of Egypt. But that's not the Cush that the Bible is talking about there. And that's just, these are things that I will correct and I will show you what the Lord showed me. And I'm using very sound translational techniques, using what has already been printed and available out there all over the place as far as meanings of words in Hebrew and Chaldean and Arabic. And I use, V. Davidson's Analytical Hebrew and Chaldee Lexicon, which has every known adjective, noun, verb in those three language bases collected into there and shows the derivative of the ancient verb that it came from and what the verb meant. It's not like Strong's Concordance. It's much more than Strong's Concordance. It's the detail, the nitty-gritty.
What was the name of that again?
It's Davidson's Analytical Hebrew and Chaldee Lexicon.
Okay.
Mine is worn, the pages of it are worn better than my Bible's, but it's Benjamin Davidson, and what he's done, he's taken every word and inflection of the Hebrew Old Testament, the Torah, and the Tanakh for that matter, and arranged them alphabetically and with grammatical analyses of them. And I use this book so much, it's just amazing. And it's what helped me find the Garden of Eden, that and Google Earth and a few other things and some scientific journals. And a lot of pieces had to come together to make this happen. But get this book if you can read the Hebrew alphabet, and it only takes a couple of weeks to learn it. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, that kind of stuff. Dalet. If you can read that, then you can read this book. It goes from right to left, in Hebrew tradition, and it has English in it, translating or explaining the nuance, and I mean the nuance of Hebrew and Chaldean and Arabic words, which ones are not used commonly, which ones are antiquity, and which ones are common, and that kind of stuff. And it lets you be an armchair Indiana Jones in that area. It really does.
Okay, yeah, that's I appreciate it. That's very helpful. I have I think we talked about this before, a program. It's called eSword. It's on the computer, and they have you can download any version of the Bible, any commentaries from the 1500s and beyond. You can get many reference books like the Book of Martyrs, Fox Books of Martyrs, different publications from the beginning of Christianity to today, different dictionaries such as the King James Concordance, Strong's Concordance. And that was going to lead me to my next question. That's this Davidson's book would be your favorite, or the best way that you understand, because the words in the Bible, in English, you have to look at the root words. I found that to be very important, and I'm going to give an example. In the Bible, we hear about Leviathan. And that's talked about in Job. It's talked about in Revelation, the beast in the sea. And some people describe it as a sea creature. Well, if you go down to the root words, and I'm going to go use this from Job 40, I believe, 40 or 41. 41. You get to the root word Leviathan, and it says it's a wretched animal, a sea monster figuratively, or a constellation of the dragon, also the symbol of Babylon, or mourning. And you go look into the root word of that, and it says by implication to unite, to cleave, borrow, join. And I was doing a study on Leviathan. This is why it was important to me. But when it's talking about Leviathan in Job 41, some people do interpret it as like a crocodile or a whale. Well, if you go down through the root words of what is being referenced, you get a completely different picture painted for you. Yep. And it's so important to our English language is relatively new. We have the Lord, He spoke in Aramaic and ancient languages. We have translations in many different languages and in old languages. But to have the root words and their meanings I can't stress enough how important it is. It's not a necessity, but when you're reading the Bible and you come up to something that's questionable, when you look at the root words of what's in the verse, it usually will help you answer whatever question or issue is in your mind.
Yeah, I know. In that thing you're using for the root verbs and all that kind of stuff, is it a online type thing you're looking at?
It is a free computer program. It is called eSword, the letter E and then sword. It is free to download, and most of the tools are free. You have graphics viewers. You can look at different maps from NASA to Rand McNally to the CIA fact book.
Oh, yeah, I see it here. Well, there's another thing that helps with that in the same manner, and it's the accordancebible.com. And I think it costs $50, but you get all kinds of different versions, translation of the Bible, plus Hebrew and Greek, and you can click on a word and immediately it pops up with the root words. You're talking about the Lord speaking Aramaic. Aramaic is such a difficult language to modernize in English that I found 15 different versions of translations of the Aramaic of the Lord's Prayer, and they do vary somewhat from what we use. But anyway, it just tells you that English or any other language, modern language, trying to understand the ancient languages leaves a lot to be desired. In fact, one rabbi scholar that I studied with said, you know what, he said, if you look at the commentaries that we have in English on the Hebrew Old Testament, just the Tanakh, he said it would fill it would take 35 times the volume that we have in the Old Testament now to put the proper English, French, or modern language translations of it, because you'd have to explain the nuance and side issues of what a word means and how it's used here versus there, and the contextual meanings of it. And he is so right. That's why we've been able to unlock so many things. I'm just a student, like you and the others that study the Bible, student of life as well. But none of us is like the author of all these things. We are trying to understand and share with you as fellow students and not teachers. We are discovering about our Creator and our world that He's created and us. And there are just so many things that we have to open our minds to and say, okay, now wait a minute. We've always said this or been taught this in Sunday school or whatever, but now what does it really mean? And I got my taste for this by studying with the rabbis when they taught me how they teach each other in the rabbinical schools called yeshiva, and how they will debate back and forth and ask and challenge and open up their minds, and as each generation passes and more things are known, the yeshiva find out more and more. And it's just, I can't tell people enough how important it is to study the word in the original languages. And these, I'm on eSword's page now, but I'm telling you, it looks very much like what I get in the accordancebible.com. The program that I've loaded down as well, and I use that as well. It's just really so helpful to be able to search and grab and look and analyze stuff like this in English and Chaldean and Arabic and Hebrew and get to the bottom of it. I'm going to look at this to see about the verb traces on this versus what I see in my accordance thing for the Mac. I don't know whether this works on the Mac or I didn't see that. Did you?
No, I'm not sure how that works with the Mac. My father does have a Mac, but I know he has not downloaded the software. And another interesting tool I have, and I see more of these. Somebody just sent us a different version, but I have a new Defender's Study Bible by Dr. Henry Morris. And some of these different study Bibles have different commentaries, and you got to be careful because you can't take somebody else's interpretation of Scripture for truth. But it does help understand, what different people, how different people understand or understood the Scriptures. The commentaries I find very helpful and interesting. We do only have a few minutes left, Dan. I want to ask you one more question, and then if there's anything you want to cover, we can hit that. Is there anything been going on with the Pope, really, I guess you'd say underground or off the radar that you've heard about?
No, not that I've heard about. Well, not that I can verify. But this Pope does worry me a great deal as being the Pope that will mislead the sheep. I mean, the Catholic Church at the moment is just bizarre. The things they are doing are definitely leading the flock astray, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see a lot of good, faithful Catholics abandoning the faith and joining the Protestants, and not the established religions, but just independent home study groups. I can see this happening. It's just bad.
Okay. And the Presbyterians, I don't know if you talked about that or somebody touched on it last week, how they voted almost 3-1 to allow performance of gay marriage in their churches.
The Presbyterian Church, I saw that.
Yeah, I was part of a Presbyterian church, and I've left about 2 years ago once they voted in the homosexual clergy to be allowed.
Yeah.
And I talked to my pastor, and he said, this is not something I agree with, but we're not going to branch off from the official church. So that was a big problem for me. But as you said, and when we were in the conference in Montana, Michael Bennett echoed this as well, that really home Bible studies and teachings are going to become the new church, because how the church is driving out true believers.
Well, and even here, like we're believers now, sharing things we've discovered and telling home study groups how they can, get more out of the Word. It is so easy now then to start learning Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, while you're looking up stuff in either eSword or the AccordanceBible.com that I'm using. I'm looking at eSword for the Mac. They've got it here.
Yeah. I just got a text from a friend who informed me of that.
I probably got the same one, but anyway, it's free, and in these days and times, that's really good for those of us that are squeaking by.
Yeah,
a lot of us are. But when I have home study groups, when I say home study, where we are, there's just no one around us that we can actually talk about this with. They're still caught up in,
That'd be like you walk into school in the old days, 10 miles uphill both ways with no shoes, huh?
Yeah, barefoot in the snow, I know, yeah. But when I was down in Australia, 30 years ago now, I was introduced to home study groups, Christian groups, out in the farming community where I was working. And I was so amazed at finding them. They would meet in somebody's home this week, somebody else's home the next week, and the host would make, coffee and crumpets, or like something like a little pancake type thing, but with bubbles in it. Anyway, and you'd have fellowship, sing song, and then you'd study, and somebody would stand up and read the reading for the day, and then you'd analyze it, and these were just good old farming people right next to the earth who depended on the Lord every day for their crops to work and for their animals to survive and to grow. And I was just so moved to be among those people. One of them invited me to speak at their church, and they were in the northern part of West Australia. And I drove there and got there and gave the lecture in the evening there to their church, and well received. And I was staying with one of the farmers at their home, and they said, if you'd like to take a shower, and the next morning and rest up, and I said, oh yeah, great. So I took a shower, and I'm known for long, luxurious hot showers. I loved it, and I got out and I came and sat at the table there at the kitchen, and I noticed the hostess, her home I was staying at, she was over at the sink not far from me there with a tray of ice cubes from the fridge, and she was very carefully cracking them and only letting water drip on it to loosen them up, and then putting them into a vase, for some iced tea and stuff. I said, you're being very careful with that water. Why is that? She said, oh, we're in an extreme drought here. I said, yeah, I noticed it was a bit dusty out there. And she said, well, we have to truck in our water. And there was Dummy here taking a shower, just letting it run down the drain. And she was over there rationing what water she put on the ice cube tray to break it up so that they didn't waste too much. I felt so bad, but then so blessed that they would share such an expensive thing as fresh water with me. Anyway, I digress, awesome. But life is just wondrous sometimes.
Yes, it is. And, when people grow spiritually, we see the best of them, and you have that sense of community and fellowship and love and what you're talking about. And so much of that has been taken away, through the decays of our morals in our society. And it's sad how many people have fallen through the cracks along with society, as we're supposed to be separate from that. But unfortunately, we're not immune unless we're paying attention. But hopefully we will get back there as a remnant. But hopefully we can use the time left on this earth to help others and make a difference for the Lord in a positive way while we're here.
I'm sure hoping what my part of it's going to be with the Garden of Eden thing will encourage so many groups of real Christians out there to get up and start telling and sharing with their neighbors and friends and family and saying, look at everything happening around you, but it is real, and as real as this is, so is the Messiah, and so is the world to come, and here's what we need to do to prepare, spiritually for this. And I just, I feel that in my spirit. It's almost like a sudden, rapid, worldwide, what would you call it, revival, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel that it is coming.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Best way I've heard it put is the Lord is moving those of His people that are working and doing His will closer in one group and in different areas for what's coming, and the rest are moving further away and having any form of godliness they did have in them taken away.
Yes.
And that's very evident too, and sad to see at the same time, because there's so many that won't make it to heaven. And what scares me is the amount of people that think they're going to heaven. I would say maybe less than half for sure, a quarter, even 10%. I saw Mayor Bloomberg say, "I've earned my place in heaven. I'll be there." I mean, these poor people. We need to pray for their souls.
Yeah, absolutely. I do just like the New Testament says. I pray that I am found worthy. So does Holly, every day, to be taken in the rapture, to be saved out of all this. But I don't know that I am going to be in that group. I mean, it's a special group. And so I pray that I'm found worthy, and every day I keep hoping, well, okay, I hope I'm found worthy, and would not presume to think, because I say I'm a Christian, I'm going to get in that rapture, I'm going to get taken care of out here like this, wonderful place in heaven. And I pray that I am found worthy, and we must do that to keep our heads screwed on straight. I just would not go out there and say myself, I'm going to be in the rapture because I'm cool. That's too presumptive.
Yeah, absolutely. We went over on our time stand. Is there anything that we did not cover that you'd like to hit on before we part ways for the evening?
Oh, you mean on life, death, the universe, and everything?
Anything that you'd like to talk about, cover?
No, I think I'm talked out for the evening.
Reveal?
No,
okay.
I think that's it for the night. We'll have another session next week,
Absolutely, and it was great having you back on again, and we will see you next Tuesday, and barring any kind of end of the world type scenario. And
I'll tell you what, that's a big bar, because I suspect things are going to get pretty busy here in the next few weeks and months. I'm even wondering if I'll get to that lecture before it happens.
Well, we're going to keep you in our prayers, and Holly as well, and
Thank you.
God bless you both for everything that you do. And folks, go to StanDayo.com. His book, Holly's book, Holly's most important book, I would say, is Dare to Prepare, and Stan's A Cosmic Conspiracy. So much good information in both those books. They're must-reads. Go to his website, StanDayo.com, and bookmark it if you haven't already. And it's a great site for information. With that, Stan, we will talk to you next week. It's been a blessing, and you guys take care.
Likewise. Thank you. Lord bless you now. Bye-bye.
God bless you, too. We are coming up against the top of the hour break. We're going to take that now as we come into the third hour on this Tuesday edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report on Tuesday the 24th. We're going to take your phone calls about 20 minutes into, or about 13 now minutes from now. We're going to be taking your calls, but we're going to go to break now. And coming up first in our break is News in 2 Minutes, brought to you by Full Spectrum Survival. Tuesday, June 24th, 2014. We're going to be taking calls throughout the rest of the show at 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839. So if there's anybody that wants to weigh in on anything that we talked about today, anything we didn't cover, please give us a call, and we will get to you as we go through the callers in order as which they called in. With that, we're going to go to the phones now. We're going to go to area code 808 first. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Hey, aloha. It's Quiet Guy here.
Good evening.
Hello? Hi, yeah, I'm just calling, I love Dayo, but, I would love to ask him if he's familiar with Jonathan Gray, or if you guys are familiar with Jonathan Gray.
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, he sends out a weekly newsletter, like Forbidden Archaeology Newsflash, but I encourage you to seriously look him up. In fact, he is, hardcore biblical archaeologist. In fact, he, he's, serious hardcore biblical archaeologist, and he backs up, like Ron Wyatt, the guy that discovered the chariot wheels on the Gulf of Aqaba and the real old Mount Ararat and Sodom and Gomorrah. Yeah, and anyway, he's totally on board with that. And
you say John
evidence.
Gray?
What's that?
John Gray?
Yeah, Jonathan Gray. Jonathan Gray. And he's like an Aussie guy, but he's serious hardcore biblical archaeologist. I greatly encourage you to check him out, and if you can, get him on the program. But he does excellent research and vetting, and like for instance, the whole dating, the carbon-14 dating, he blows that out of the water, and the whole global flood. All the evidence that it was a global flood, like all different species, and dinosaurs coexisting with man, and all different species that went to the top of mountains, and the graveyards, the crevices. You find all mixed up bones from all different species that don't live together. They race to the top of the mountains to get away from the rising water all over the planet. Not to mention all the global legends and the stories about the Great Flood.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, just check out Jonathan Gray, and you'll be glad you did.
Well, thank you. I definitely will do that. Is there anything else that you want to get into tonight?
Okay, well, my opinion is that the Garden of Eden was on Atlantis, but I haven't heard everything Stan Dayo has to say about it, but I think it was on Atlantis. But that's a good subject too. Oh yeah, there's something cool if you want to bring it up. I was tripping on that anomaly, underwater anomaly off the coast of Malibu, Point Doom. That's a good friend of mine over here in Kauai. He has some property over there in Point Doom. So I just thought it was I shared that with him this morning. But yeah, that's interesting. You know about that, right?
No, I have not. I have not heard about that.
Oh, really? Well, it was on. I heard it last night on Ground Zero program, and it's on the Before It's News website. It's 1,600 feet, 6.5 miles off the coast, by Malibu. 6.5 miles off the coast, 1,600 feet deep, and there's like a 500-foot thick roof supported by 600 tall-foot pillars, and it's like entrance to the ET, they say, base, or it could be one of those tunnels, how they get the submarines to the naval base in China Lake or the middle of Nevada. But it's check that. I want to check that out too. That's very interesting.
Yeah, something I'll definitely look into. All right. Well, thank you so much for the call, and I'll check out Jonathan Gray and look into that story you were just telling me about, and I appreciate the information and the call.
All right. I appreciate you guys for the format. God bless. Aloha.
God bless you too. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. We're going to go to our next caller. We're going to go to area code 928. We're coming to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Good evening, gentlemen. This is Robert in Arizona.
Hi, Robert.
I would like to call in and give a word of encouragement, if I may, a personal testimony.
Okay.
I was working on the west slope of the Rockies in Nucla, Colorado. We were building a trash burner for Bechtel, a revolutionary design on a powerhouse. And I lived about 2.5 hours away from the job site. So midweek, I would trip home to keep from being a weekend daddy, you know.
Yeah.
Well, this one particular Wednesday, there were 4 of us living in a trailer, a small trailer, and it got real cramped and whatnot. So, anyways, we'd just bug out and go home. This one particular Wednesday, the guys come to me and say, "Robert, we're not gonna travel. There's a bad storm coming in. We're supposed to really get hit hard, and we're just not going to do it." And I said, "Well," "I'm going to." And you look up, and the sky is just dark, dark, dark gray. You can feel the storm when it's getting ready to snow. And I'm talking trash. I said, "Joe," my partner's name was Joe. "The whole sky was dark, but over on the western horizon, there's a little blue mouse hole where you could see a little bit of blue sky." And I'm talking trash like Charles Barkley. I said, "Joe," "you see that little hole right there?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, that's the one I'm going through." I said, "I'm not scared of that storm." And I'm talking trash, you know. Well, 2:30 rolls around. That was our quitting time. And I'm sitting out in the parking lot, and I told God, I said, "God, I done talked all the trash I can talk." I said, "I'm going to count on you to get me through this." And pulled up out of the parking lot. That power plant was down in a little canyon. You climb up out of this little valley, and you hit this straightaway. It's about 35 miles, just as straight as can be. Right at the end of that, there's a hairpin turn, about 15, that you have to slow down about 15 miles an hour, and then you turn north, climb up through the mountains, and drop into Dove Creek. So, as soon as I pulled out of that parking lot, it started snowing. And it started snowing them big flakes, and one's about the size of a $50.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, oh, dear. I'm driving a front-wheel drive Tornado. So, I pull out, and I top out on top of that hill, and I'm still in the prayer mode, you know. That drive time was the time I used to spend talking to God. You know, just dwelling on the Word. But anyways, I pulled out of that parking lot, lined out. I'm running 70 miles an hour, and it is snowing like a wild bandit. There's box canyons to the left and to the right, and they're snowed in. You can just see the wall of snow. It's snowing in front of me, and it's snowing in back of me. I can see it in the rearview mirror, and I can see it, you know, coming at me through the front mirror. I'm traveling in a patch of sunlight. My windshield is not even getting wet. That patch of sunlight, you can see it moving down the highway. I look in the rearview mirror, and I can see it coming. So I thought, okay, that's a coincidence. You know, that's just a freak of nature. I'm a trained meteorologist. I did that in the service. I know a little bit about weather. But I thought, wow, the truth will come when I hit that 15-mile-an-hour turn. So sure enough, I hit that sharp 90-degree turn. That patch of sunlight turned with me. And now it's heading north. My windshield is not even getting wet. I didn't even have to turn my windshield wipers on. So, man, I'm starting to get blown away. I said, man, this is unbelievable. I said, God, you're great. I am totally impressed. I said, now would you do something to confirm it? I looked over. Now, keep in mind, it's snowing. It's dark skies. I look over to my right, in this valley that I'm in. There's the clouds in the shape of a cross with sunbeams coming out from behind it. The sky is overcast. I don't know how that light got through, but I know what I saw. Now, you know, this kind of stuff, it unnerves me, but it makes me think that, hey, God cares about Robert. And I'm not a spiritual ramble. I am a sinner saved by grace. But he cares about you.
Amen.
And he cares about me. And he knows where we're going. He knows where we're at. Now, I told you, I fell off that 100-foot cliff and I was dead for 5 minutes. 10 years to the day, my tool buddy fell 40 feet. He was dead on impact. Now, let's back up 3 days. I'm sitting in church Sunday night. My son's asleep in the pew beside me. And this friend of my father's and mine, he used to be a grand shanker with the fleas. And that won't mean anything to anybody except those in the know. But it's an organization within an organization. One of those secret little clubs that we seem to be seeing so much in the news now. But anyways, he got out of that lifestyle, that hard partying, hard running, road warrior lifestyle. And he became a DJ at the Christian radio station. Now, Sunday night I'm sitting there, Johnny comes over and he says, "Scoot over, Robert." He said, "I want to pray with you." So, okay. I kind of perturbed me a little bit because I had to scoot the munchkin over. You know, I'm sitting right at the end of the pew. Had to scoot the munchkin over, and then I scooted over. Johnny, he's a pretty large man. Takes up a lot of room, but he squeezed in there and he put his arm around my neck and he started praying. "Lord, remove those images from his head." Man, I had no clue what he was talking about. No clue. Totally out of left field. But I thought, okay, I'm going to accept this, and I'm just going to, see how it plays out. And I accepted that word. 3 days later, like I said, when Jack fell, I was the first man to get to him. I was the second man to get to him. The guy that got to him first was a trained emergency personnel. Well, in a situation like that, you have to stand aside, okay? I wanted to flop him and CPR him, the same thing they did to me when I fell off that mountain. But they said, no, he's got a neck injury, we've got to get this neck brace on, yada, yada, yada. Well, they did all that. Well, when they turned him over, his face had the same expression that my dad's face had when I found him after he had passed away. And they call it the death mask. But I'm thinking, oh, my God. That's what Johnny had prayed with me about 3 days earlier. So what I'm trying to tell you, the whole story the whole point of the story, God knows where you're at. He knows what he's going to. He's already taken steps today to prepare you for what you're going to go through 3 days from now.
Amen. Absolutely.
He is in control. And I believe that. I operate on that. And I thank you for your time, gentlemen. I hope that helps somebody.
Absolutely. And God bless you. And thank you so much for the call and the words of encouragement. Yeah, God does work in ways in our lives, and a lot of times we'll find ourselves saying, why are we in this situation, or what's going on, why is this happening, when God's using it for our benefit in the long run. And I always appreciate to hear testimonies of the same. God bless you. Thank you so much for the call. We're going to move on now. You have a great night. We're going to go to area code 832 next. 832. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hey.
Good evening.
Hey, Joe. What's up? It's Kevin from Houston.
Hey, Kevin.
How you doing, bud?
This is our app gentleman. It's good to hear from you.
Yeah. How come your dad's on the show tonight?
He had a personal, it's a personal matter, nothing serious that he had to go to after the first hour. So he bailed on me. I think he did it on purpose, but I guess he owes me because it was the last night. So.
Well, I mean, it was your anniversary. You had to take the missus somewhere.
That's right. If I can do anything once a year, it's celebrate that anniversary, and wouldn't change it for the world.
Good for you, buddy. That's good. The one thing I was going to talk about was something Stan touched upon about the water under the earth. Because when you hear about the floods, like the flood that Noah, physically speaking, how could you possibly flood to the top of, say, the Himalayas with the water that we currently have on the earth? Because how could you, where's the extra water coming from? And that's always something that kind of bothered me, and I'm sure it's bothered other people. How can you flood tops of Himalayas with the water that we currently have? So we'd have to actually have more water to flood the entire earth. You understand what I mean? From a physics standpoint.
But we're told about, before the flood that the water came from the ground. It came from dew from the ground, and after the flood, it came from rain from the sky. And I don't know if you saw, there was a recent article how scientists say there could be humongous oceans under the surface, once never thought to be there, that are there.
Exactly. And then of course you said that it was also hot. So that makes a lot more sense. That when, say, a pole shift comes, it splits the ground, all that water is released on top of all the rain, then that makes total sense. That's how you can flood the earth. And I guess once, maybe if pole shifts, settles and the water recedes back to from whence it came, that would make more sense. It's from a physics standpoint. Because you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something that always bothered me about the flood.
Yeah, a lot of people have many questions about that, and from my studies, it's interesting to see science now making claims or having theories that support exactly what the Bible said, and how the flood happened and where the water came from. And it's interesting. If you don't have to look hard, but you'll see, the Bible is telling the truth, and science is what is falling behind or lacking, and it's playing catch up, really.
Yeah, it seems like it's playing catch up more and more every day, especially with when you were talking about the Vatican announcing belief in the aliens does not mean it doesn't believe that you have faith in God. You would have said that 500 years ago. You would have been burned at the stake.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't understand how that's not heresy all of a sudden because we have a new pope.
Yeah. Well, there is a lot wrong with the denominational churches and the belief systems that they entail, and there will be, I believe, until the believers unify. But that's another whole topic.
Yes, and for the life of me, why in the world would the Vatican build the largest telescope in North America, in Arizona, and name it Lucifer? Can someone please explain to me why? Why?
The same reason. The same reason they have the upside down cross. They say it's because of the representation of Peter. Well, the church wasn't built on Peter; it was built on the Lord. The Lord said, about Peter, but the Catholic Church is saying, well, the upside down cross is for remembrance of Peter, but we're supposed to only remember Jesus and his sacrifice to us. So that should make no difference. There's a lot of things they do that do not make sense, that are very contrary to what believers and what the Bible would say and does say.
This is the first time I've heard about the upside down cross. Please explain. I haven't heard anything about that.
Oh yeah, just go on an internet search and search Pope's chair upside down cross or upside down cross at Vatican.
I thought that was sacrilege.
Well, as I said, they explain it away by saying it's how Peter was crucified, and they built their church on Peter, but in reality, it is a Satanist symbol. And even I saw a mainstream media report that used it as an example, not the Vatican chair, but used the upside down cross as an example of Satanism.
Oh, yeah, Anton LaVey used to have an upside-down cross behind him.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that are done. Like you said, the telescope, naming the largest telescope in the world owned by the Vatican, Lucifer. Well, I think it's self-explanatory.
It's like a joke. I mean, it's almost like, are you guys doing this as some kind of a sick joke? I don't know. It just boggles my mind. Anyway, I don't want to take up too much of your time with that. The one thing I wanted to ask you is Michael Tellinger. I'm sure you're aware of him. Has it ever been thought about getting him as a guest? Because he is just interesting to listen to.
What was that name?
2 hours the other day. Michael Tellinger.
Okay. I've never heard of him.
Oh my gosh, you need to look him up. And I rarely ever give you guys, people to listen to, but just on your spare time tomorrow, give him a talk. And the other thing I wanted to talk for in closing was, get me that information from Blog Talk, because you know your dad. He's so busy. He'll never get around to it.
Yeah, we talked about that today before the show, and I'll be here most of the day tomorrow, so we should be able to do that.
That'd be awesome. Thanks a lot. Great
Thank
show,
you.
and I'll probably talk to you tomorrow then. If we start getting that squared away, that'd be great. So,
absolutely. And thank you and your brother for the app once again. It's fantastic, and you guys have a great night.
Thank you. You too, buddy. Bye.
Take care. All right, we're going to go to area code 253 next. 253, you were live on the Hagmann and Hagmann report.
Area code 253 next.
And hearing feedback. 253.
Is this the Honorable Joe?
Yes, it is. I already knew it. I could already tell. Yep.
You know who this is, don't you?
Absolutely. That laugh
is Jack Groening. This is Jack Groening up in Lakewood, Washington. I want NSA to know where I'm at. They need an address. I'll give it to them. Hey,
well, it's good to hear from you.
Congratulations on your anniversary, sir.
Well, thank you so much.
I want to say that, and and through the years of my life, I destroyed my marriage, and I regret it, and I hope that you just really keep her for a very long time, okay?
Absolutely.
And you know what? How come with the words that was being spoke last night on the show is what I want to know is when is somebody with some cojones, with some backbone, that's going to stand up against these people in Washington, D.C., and go in there and arrest these people? That's what I want to know.
I didn't listen to last night's show, but we've had...
you didn't?
You've had American Spring. There's other protest groups that are rising. But I say never. I say that this corruption continues until there is a chaos, which people are too worried about their own survival. And, how can you get away with having Congress have less than a 9% approval rating? And new reports come out say that it's even worse now. You have a president who has, 41% approval rating, but yet things continue, and they will continue as they have. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's the system we have right now.
It's just, you know what? There's no words for it. It's just there's no words for it. This is
biblical.
It's biblical. Yeah, that's a very good word. Hey, I got my beans ordered today. I got my red beans. I got my rice ordered today. Got my crossbow in the mail. I got my Pro-Pure water filter in the mail a week ago. Man, I'm getting ready to prep. Okay.
Fantastic. Sounds like you're getting ready to go out tomorrow.
Oh man, I'm about ready to get me a donkey and head up to. You know what? I'll tell you what. Things getting worse. I'm going to get me a donkey and head up to Mount Olympia and find me I wonder if I could beat radar in a cave and survive in a cave. I wonder if I could do that. I don't know if there's somebody out there that knows that. You know,
you might be
radiation.
able to.
You know what? I think if I could grow a fire, if I could have a fire inside of a cave, I don't think they could find me.
I'll tell you what, though, the part about getting the donkey, because it's going to keep getting worse, I guarantee you it's going to get worse, so you can go ahead and put a down payment on that animal, because it's coming.
Man, it's coming. I can see it. I can feel it. Man, I know it's coming. And you're trying to wake up everybody else, and they just like look at you like a deer in the headlights look, you know, like, what are you talking about, you know? Everything's just going to be fine, you know? It's like, oh my God. You know, I'm just so, I don't have words to explain it, you know, how to wake up people, you know, and I pray for people, and I try to wake people up, and it just doesn't seem to, you know what it is? You know what? God showed me this one time. You know what? I was praying one time, and he said, Jack, you know, I said, how come I can't wake these people up, Father? How come I can't wake these people up? And you know what the word was that came back? He says, Jack, can the dead see? Can the dead hear?
Yeah.
I had to say no to that.
Well, fantastic.
Hey, where's Doug at tonight?
He's actually sleeping. No, he had a personal engagement that he could only take care of this evening, so he had to go do that. At least that's what he told me. So,
man, it's nice talking to you. I'm always laughing at you guys and trying to get you more of an upbeat. You know, we hear all this doom and gloom all the time, man. You know, it bogs you down a little bit, you know.
Absolutely,
you know,
it can.
Yeah, you know, I don't have no fear of it, but I don't know if there's another word for it, but God bless you, and let somebody else talk. I love you.
Love you too. Great to hear from you. Thanks for the familiar laugh. We love it, and you have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. All right, we do have a few more callers here. We're going to go to area code 937 next. 937, you are live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report. 937?
Hello?
Good evening.
Yes, hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're live.
Okay. Just want to know that you have a really great program, and been listening to it at my office, and just, you know, been very blessed to hear your show, and it's very insightful. And, just pray that your show will continue to bless people all over the world, and they will wake up and they will know that, you know, we don't serve a dead God, we serve a living God. Amen. And I'm out. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you for the call and the message. God bless you. You have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. This time, 937, we're coming to you. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
How you doing tonight, Joe?
Doing fantastic. How about you?
Hey, good, man. It's good to hear you guys talking about young Earth. You know, I'm a little passionate about the young Earth and stuff like that. And anyway, listen, I heard one of the callers talking about Michael Tellinger, and I would never, you know, presume to tell you what to do on your show, but I mean, I would discourage it, because just because he mentions Zachariah Sitchin's work, and Zachariah Sitchin's been proven wrong in his translations, I'm really afraid that people will be led astray. And I follow Mormons, but Joseph Smith also was proven to be a liar, you know, and Joseph Smith has a cult following now, his own religion.
The Mormon Joseph Smith?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And,
yeah, I'm not familiar with with that Michael person, Michael Tangler, however you pronounce it, but that's something I was going to look into and check out at least. But I appreciate the heads up.
The only I think he has talks about you, which is you guys might be interested in, is the Ubuntu movement, where he is
You're cutting out a little bit, caller. Half of what you said came in, the other half really didn't. If you want to go ahead and try and repeat that. And I think, we lost you. Well, if you want to try and call back, we'll try and get you back on the air. We have only about 10 minutes left. We're going to go to Montana, 406 area code. We're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
We have only
Hello?
10 minutes left.
Good evening.
Hey, Doug.
My
name's Christopher.
Joe. Hi, Christopher.
I'm so sorry. I mean,
no problem.
Your dad's out for the evening. We actually met briefly at the conference. And
okay.
I just wanted to say it was an honor to meet you, and it was an honor to pray over your dad. On Sunday, me and Pastor Kyle, we prayed for your dad, and it was great to meet you guys, and to pray for him. And I just wanted to say, thank you for what you guys are doing again.
Well, thank you. I want to tell you that me and my father talked about people praying over him while we were in the conference, and he explained how he didn't tell me exactly how he felt and what difference it made for him, but he did say that he did feel a big difference after that. So I want to thank you very much for praying for him and praying over him.
Well, it's Jesus that's doing the work, and that's what that conference was all about. And we don't have to fear, what's going to be ahead of us. We just need to be educated, and God will provide for us, and He's the one, as Pastor Carl says, we live through, And, great show tonight. Very interesting. I only caught the tail end of it, but I figured I'd give it a shot and try and call in, just to thank you guys again. And I don't know if you guys have mentioned this before, or Stan Dayo has talked about it. Have you guys ever talked about Hollow Earth theory or anything like that, of that nature?
That would be something that we would talk to Stan about. I'm sure he's addressed it on our show. I could not tell you exactly what his position or theory is, but it's something I can write down and ask him next week when we have him on. Did we lose you? Yep, we did. We dropped you here. We got about 10 minutes left. So if you want to call back, we're going to go to 818 area code next, and if 406 Montana, if you want to call back, we'll take your call right after this. 818. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Hey, Joe. It's Chance and Merrill from American Survival Wholesale. We just wanted to say happy anniversary, and don't forget, give your wife flowers for the next at least 6 or 7 days after your anniversary.
Well, thanks, Chance. It's great to hear from you. And tell your wife I said hi.
Hi, Joe. Hi, everybody.
Anyway,
Glad
God
to
bless
hear
you. God bless you. Happy anniversary, and I hope that you guys really have fun. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for what you do. You are a blessing to this show, and we can't thank you enough. So God bless you guys as well, and thanks again.
Okay, we want to leave room for other callers, but we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks, Chance. Have a great night, and tell your wife the same. God bless you guys.
We love you.
We love you, too. That was Chance, owner of American Survival Wholesale. go to their website and check out the latest offers they have on their survival necessities and storable food. It is the one-stop shop for all that preparedness items, whether it be food or tools or whatever you need. They will work with you, and they are great people and supporters of the show, and we thank them so much. We have our caller from Montana back. We're going to come back to him as he was cut off mid-sentence. Sorry about that. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report again.
Go ahead. That's okay. Thank you for taking my call again. Yeah, no big deal. I mean, you don't have to write that down for the Hollow Earth. It just briefly looked into that, but sometimes some of the things that some of these scientists talk about, or even some of the stuff that I've read on Steve's site, seem to indicate there could be a possibility of that. But even things in the Bible, that could be unlocked. So, yeah, maybe perhaps on a future programmer. But
yeah.
So, yeah, that's all I had. Just keep up the good work, and you're in our prayers. You're on our prayer list now that we have up on our wall. It's just my kids and myself. I'm a single dad, but we got our prayer list that we put up for everybody that we come across, and try to pray for them as much as we can. So,
well, thank you so much,
and happy anniversary.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a fantastic 2 years, and all the prayers and the happy anniversary wishes are definitely appreciated, and thank you very much, and everyone else who mentioned it. It's much appreciated. It is a blessing for me to have my wife, and I'd like to take full advantage of getting to spend some quality time whenever I can. So,
Amen.
Don't be surprised if for every anniversary I have, I'm missing from the show. That probably will be my goal. So.
Well, that's definitely a blessing. So, well, I'll let you go so other people can try and call in. But
okay.
Hope to meet you and your dad one day again.
Yeah,
so,
it was nice meeting you at the conference too. And thanks for mentioning that you were there. We met so many people. Everybody was so fantastic and great. We wish we had more time to spend extra time with everybody. But
hard to remember everybody too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure I'd remember you if I saw you in person again. And I hope we can do that sometime soon. So thank you very much, and God bless you.
You too. Jesus bless you.
All right. We have about 5 minutes left. We will take another call. We're going to go to area code 936. 936, thank you for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, Joe. Mike Boone, the big second of East Texas. How you doing this evening?
Good evening.
I was wondering, who woke your dad up? Because he used to be, I remember, it wasn't 9/1 or 9/11 truthers, or he wasn't with the program back.
No, you're right.
Was it you?
Yes, it was, and it wasn't because of my smooth talking or articulation of data points. It was my constant nagging while we were working as private investigators, driving across New York State for work all the time, and him being stuck in the van with me. I could, at first he would call me names, crazy, say I'm, insane, and this and that. Little by little, day by day, week by week, month by month, he started to come around, and he's been doing a great job ever since.
Yeah, I agree. He's been a positive force now, for the Patriot community out here, and just love seeing that now. But having your dad, as a fellow believer and knowing what the score is out there in the big picture, it's got to be a great thing. And
it's such a blessing to be able to work with my father and do what we've been doing. Working with him as a private investigator, and now being able to work with him in doing this. It's something that I'll be grateful for the rest of my life.
Absolutely. Did you have a chance to look into Operation High Jump and missing Nazi U-boats and so forth? Admiral Byrd's
I have
biography.
Researched that before, not Admiral Byrd's biography, and it's been a while since I've looked into it.
Really fascinating. And that gets into Hollow Earth theory. That gets into your Hollow Earth stuff real quick. But anyway, put a bug near your about that. But let you know we're listening out here, and we'll let somebody else get on. Have a blessed evening.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. You have a blessed evening, too. And God bless you, and thanks for the call.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
All right. We have just about reached the end of the program. We have 2 minutes left. So we're going to cut it short as we have no more callers on hold. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in tonight. For those joining us late, we had Stan Dayo on in the second hour, as we do just about every Tuesday. And my father was here for the first hour and had a personal engagement that he was not available for the last two. So it was just me and Stan, and then me taking calls in this third hour. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in once again, your emails, your calls, your prayers. We can't thank you enough. God bless each and every one of you. Until tomorrow night with Steve Quayle and V, stay safe and God bless.